let's run with it. Hello and welcome back. We'll jump right into this one. Today we're talking about Lord of the Flies, a classic children's novel from the 1950s that they force-feed teenagers in high school. At first I couldn't really understand why you would want teenagers to read this. The kids are horrible. But then by the end of it, I realized that maybe it would be good for young people to see how stupid kids can be. I don't know, maybe it would give them some perspective. We're gonna hop over to Predictions Emily to see what she thinks is gonna happen for the rest of the book. Spoilers if you haven't read it yet. My brother and my sister read this book whenever they were in high school, so I remember them mentioning it and like saying kind of the big plot moments that I do know. At least I think I know. One of them is that Piggy dies, and I think there's cannibalism. I honestly don't have a lot of predictions. I don't know anything about this book, and whenever I read the summary online, it was just like, boys get stuck on an island. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really give me a lot to go off of, so I think my main things is that Ralph is gonna kill Piggy, and that Ralph is gonna end up being a psychopath. When he survives, because he will survive, he will convince everybody that everyone died of natural causes and he had nothing to do with it, but he'll have done it all. Well, that was weird. I liked it. I mean, I like dark stories to begin with, so for that reason I like how dark it was. I think William did a good job showing the thought process of children and how stupid they are and like short-sighted their decisions are. I'm gonna put up a bunch of examples of how William kind of like described the thought process of children. I think he did a really good job because I can barely remember how I thought about life as an 11-year-old, but as he describes it in these many quotes, it really takes me back. I think he did a good job. I did think that like the writing was good, but it was also like really confusing at times. I don't know, it took me a while to like understand how to read it the way it was meant to be read. Here's some examples. I do appreciate that he was like a flawed protagonist. We don't get a lot of those. He was technically like a little shit in the beginning a bit, but I think they did capture like the essence of like a decent kid who can still be like pretty callous and irresponsible, but also like kind of knows better and is also still making just stupid childish decisions like at every turn. As much as he annoyed me in the beginning, I could see like the progression of him understanding that he was being childish but not knowing how not to be. So I thought that was good. One of my favorite parts was whenever they ran into the naval officer and he basically just like dismisses everything he's looking at as just kind of like a childish game. It was reminding me of like whenever kids are like playing outside with each other and then they like go up to their parents and they're like, "Mom, Dad, like so-and-so just like hit me," and to the kids, it's like a huge deal. It is like an all-consuming experience. But to the parents, you can look at that and be like pretty dismissive of that experience. And that can be really frustrating for kids if they feel like you aren't taking what they're going through seriously. I think it was an interesting choice to have like the only adult in this book, the moment he sees like a real moment of like pain and actual bad things happening to kids, still treats it in that same way that parents would. But in this case, the kids' problems were very real, but they were still being treated very dismissively, and I thought that was a nice touch. Anyway, let's get into the movie. Turns out there's two of them. This movie is really a product of its time. It's all black and white. They used real dead pigs, terrible voiceovers because they didn't have boom mics or anything. So like every scene is on a loud ocean beach and every scene is dubbed over with a voiceover because you can't hear anything in the actual like filmed thing. There are just like butt naked children everywhere on screen and on set. Guess that was fine. They let kids run around swinging sticks on fire like spears they pulled out of a bonfire, and they're like swinging them around and like throwing them in the ocean. They let them do that in the dark, just a whole crowd of them. Let's see. Oh, they flogged a boy and they showed children like flogging another kid. I'm not gonna show that scene, that was weird. Think that they set the entire island on fire for a shot. And then they had the kids run around on the beach while the island was on fire so they could show it. I'm just like, you could never get away with doing that these days for so many reasons, but there's just, you know, back then they're like, well, fuck, how else are we gonna like depict the island on fire? I guess we have to burn it down. How quickly can we get this shot before the fire reaches us? Kids, don't go over there. That's where the fire is. We're filming over here right now. We gotta hurry. It's too bad that they didn't do the big fire scene from Act 1. But I assume that was because they were waiting to burn down the island at the end of the movie. So, you know, what can you do? This movie was a wholly faithful adaptation of the book, like frame for frame, the exact visuals of the book, and like almost word for word. And in that way, they did a really good job. Like the cast is exactly who I'm imagining in my head. Like they got the age exactly right. They got like the features and the characteristics exactly right. Almost every single frame is just like something that came straight from the book, description-wise. But then there was always just something about it that just didn't land. The acting was kind of terrible. It's hard to get good actors with children, so I'm not surprised with that. But there was like no creativity in any of the shots, and so all this tension that you get in the book from thoughts and kind of like smaller things like sounds, they didn't really utilize. So the sound design could have brought out that feeling more, or they could have had like more creative shots, whatever else, to just sort of like bring these emotions out. But a lot of it was just sort of like point and shoot. It didn't come alive. And I could see how if this is the version you're showing to teenagers in high school, how they would be bored out of their fucking minds. And I think there should be a lesson in the fact that you can't do that successfully, and that also doesn't work for being a film adaptation of a book, because it takes more than just parroting the words and putting the exact visuals that you see from the book on screen. That doesn't translate. There was a moment where the kids see the guy who fell out of the plane with his parachute and landed on top of the mountain. So they see him for the first time and he's kind of like hunched over. His parachute's billowing in the wind. But what you can see at the very back is the person's hand like whipping the parachute up and down. I just thought that was funny because I'm like, they just didn't retake the shot. I love stuff like that. I think that's so funny. Oh, I thought it was funny whenever the kids started like painting their faces. One kid just like painted a beard onto his face. Piggy's pointless additive story about the history of his hometown, Camberley, there was no reason for it. Now, I know the history of Camberley, and it means nothing to me. This whole movie is completely faithfully adapted, and then they throw in random shit like this, and I just think that's really funny. The best part was the 30-second pan up the naval officer whenever he finds Ralph on the beach, and now it goes on for such a long time. So I liked that. I thought that was pretty funny. The adult didn't say anything. It was silent. Huge missed opportunity. The adults showing up at the end and downplaying their entire experience on this island where they have killed people. They could have done something with that, and I don't know why they didn't, and so that was stupid. On to the next movie. 1990s. This one started off great. The pilot falling through the ocean and there's blood coming out of his nose because he got hit in the face with the earth, and then the boys pull him back up. They're all screaming in the middle of the ocean, and it's just ocean as far as you can see, and the camera's like on the water level, and so you feel like you're part of it, and it's like really building this tension. And then there's like this explosion sound, but it's the lifeboat inflating, and I was like, oh, that was really extreme and scary and like intense, and the music's like picking up, and it's getting like really good and really interesting. And then they cut to a opening title screen and the opening credits and kill the mood. So the movie was set in the 90s, I think. I did watch this immediately after the first one, and so I was getting pretty bored. So I might have missed some details, but here's all the things that they changed. They had glow sticks. They had bug nets. The pilot survived. He takes the place of the beast. They had an inflatable raft. The boys were from military school, which is why they knew how to do things. I liked that. I thought that was good. Everybody followed Jack straight away. There were 2 ambushes on Ralph's camp. Once to get back Jack's hunting knife, and then the second one to steal Piggy's glasses. They changed people's names for no reason. Like, they kept the main kids, and then just like everybody else got new names. Like, it was really confusing. There was a predetermined power structure because Ralph was already the colonel of their troop, and I guess Jack was the oldest. And then a bunch of other stuff that I think I just kind of forgot to write down. So there's this moment, the boys, and they're trying to decide, like, what are we supposed to do? They're like, okay, we need to make fire, and we need to have somebody watching it, and we need to, like, get people hunting. And then just, like, out of nowhere, the pilot just rolls over and has, like, a huge coughing fit, and everybody's just like, what the fuck? And it's so jarring because you just forgot that anybody else was there with them, and it's so pointless. So here's that.
I'm sure they're out looking for us. We should set up some kind of steady signal, like a fire, and keep it going all the time. And we're gonna have rules.
They put a lot more emphasis on Simon going crazy, and I don't think they like needed to, and like had him like dreaming of like rescue and people talking to him that were dead, and like that was just another little piece of like creative liberty that they took, and I appreciate that. They also did his death scene a lot better, and you could like see his fucked up back after they killed him, and that was very spooky, and I liked that. Oh, and they whipped another kid, so. And they burned down another island. Can't stop them. They really liked doing that. And it was another missed opportunity for an adult to have anything to say about their experience. The adult said nothing, so great. And overall, I did really like it. It was a good book. I burned through it really fast in 2 days. No, pun intended, you know what? But it really does go to show how ruthless and stupid kids are, and how you have to do a little bit more than just copying word for word, phrase for phrase, scene for scene to adapt a book to a movie. And I think out of the 2 movies, the 90s one did a better job adapting the story, and I liked it more, though I paid attention less, but that was just because I was tired and I had already watched the first one, which was boring. But I wouldn't recommend either of them because they were both pretty mid. So sorry. Still, I did like it, and it's an easy read, and I will give it 1 Anthony Porowski out of 10. I haven't printed his picture yet. That's how I felt. Thank you and goodbye. There was a moment where I legitimately thought that they killed that kid just for the shot, because honestly, I would not put it past them.